Mughal invasions of India and the Delhi Sultanate in the 13th to 14th centuries. The origin of the Mughals. The Mughals originated as Mughal forces under Genghis Khan that conquered large parts of Asia in the early 13th century. After Genghis Khan's death in 1227, the vast Mughal empire was divided into four major khanates ruled by descendants of Genghis Khan's four sons. These were the Golden Horde in Eastern Europe, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, and the Yuan dynasty in China. The Chagatai Khanate comprised modern-day Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, southern Kyrgyzstan, southwest Kazakhstan, and parts of Turkmenistan and Afghanistan. It was ruled by descendants of Genghis Khan's second son Chagatai Khan. Being hemmed in by fellow Mughal Khanates, the Chagatai Khanate could only expand southwards into the Indian subcontinent. This brought them into conflict with the Delhi Sultanate of northern India. The Delhi Sultanate. The Delhi Sultanate arose from the ruins of the Ghurid Empire in northern India. After the Ghurid Sultan Muiz ad-Din Muhammad Ghori died in 1206, his slave generals known as the 40 broke up his empire. The Delhi Sultanate was formed from his former Indian territories and ruled by his generals and their successors. The first Sultan was Qutb al-Din Aibak, a former Ghurid slave. He established his capital at Lahore, which was later moved to Delhi by his successor Iltutmish. The Delhi Sultanate was ruled by five dynasties in succession: the Mamluk 1206-90, Khalji 1290-1320, Tughlaq 1320-1414, Sayyid 1414-51, and Lodi dynasties 1451-1526. Early conflicts with the Mughals. Relations between the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughals began in the 1220s, when Genghis Khan himself advanced towards the Indus River, before stopping and turning back for unknown reasons. Small-scale Mughal raids into the Punjab and Sindh began in the 1230s and 1240s. In the 1250s, the Chagatai Mughal leader Sali Noyan conquered Punjab and occupied Lahore. Delhi Sultan Nasir-ud-Din Mahmud Shah was engaged in conflict with his ambitious nobility and could not expel the Mughals. His successor Ghiyas-ud-Din Balban reversed this policy. He recaptured Lahore, strengthened the northwest frontiers, and welcomed refugees from the Mughal civil wars, gaining intelligence on their military tactics. The Khalji dynasty. In 1290, the Khalji dynasty came to power under Sultan Jalal-ud-Din Firuz Khalji, a distinguished military general. Jalal-ud-Din defeated a Mughal incursion at the Battle of Tarain in 1292. However, his ambitious nephew and successor Ala-ud-Din Khalji killed Jalal-ud-Din and took the throne in 1296. Ala-ud-Din was an exceptionally capable military strategist. In 1297, the Chagatai Khan Duwa dispatched a large Mughal force into India. Ala-ud-Din's army defeated them at Jalandhar. Ala-ud-Din undertook major military reforms, establishing direct pay and control over the army. He also implemented tax and price controls to finance large armies. The Battle of Kili. In 1299, Duwa and his son Kutla Khwaja launched a major invasion of India with 50,000 to 60,000 cavalry to conquer Delhi. While Ala-ud-Din was away on an expedition, his general Zafar Khan confronted the Mughals at Kili, 15 miles from Delhi. In a tactical mistake, Zafar Khan pursued retreating Mughal forces too far and was encircled and killed. However, Ala-ud-Din rallied his main force and inflicted a major defeat on Kutla Khwaja's forces. The Mughals retreated back across the border into Central Asia. This decisive victory cemented Ala-ud-Din's control over the Sultanate. Continued conflicts. Despite Ala-ud-Din's strong defenses, Mughal raids continued annually from 1304 to 1308. In 1303, Duwa's grandson Kutla Khwaja again invaded India but was defeated by Ala-ud-Din's forces near Amroha. After Duwa's death in 1306, the Chagatai Khanate fell into civil war over succession. This reduced the threat to India. However, in 1328 to 1329, Duwa's son Tamashiran launched a major invasion that ended in stalemate after 2 months of fighting near Delhi. Tamashiran was unable to press further into Delhi territory. Causes of the Mughal failures in India. The Mughals failed to conquer India despite their vast cavalry armies due to several crucial factors. The Delhi Sultans adopted Mughal warfare tactics, minimizing the advantage of the invaders. Spies provided intelligence on Mughal strategies. India's hot climate and terrain was unfavorable for the Mughals and their horses, especially in summer. Pasturage was limited. The Delhi Sultanate was unified under capable rulers like Ala ud-Din Khalji and Balban who could concentrate resources and armies to resist invasion. Mughal casualties were harder to replace than Delhi's losses. Delhi also used its central position to shift forces rapidly. After 1306, dynastic conflicts in the Chagatai Khanate diverted Mughal attention away from India. Mughal commanders underestimated the military effectiveness of the Delhi Sultanate. Small raiding parties were ineffective against concentrated Delhi armies. While the Mughals could and did raid large swathes of the Punjab for plunder, they were unable to conquer the Delhi Sultanate or advance south into the Gangetic Plains for any prolonged period. The defense of India exhausted Mughal manpower and resources. The death of Duwa in 1306 finally ended the serious Mughal threat to Delhi's control over northern India. Background on the Chagatai Khanate. To better understand the origins of the Mughal invasions, here is some background on the Chagatai Khanate and how it related to the other Mughal Khanates. After Genghis Khan's death in 1227, his empire was divided among his 4 sons and further subdivided among their descendants. This caused almost continuous civil wars between rival Khans and princes. The Chagatai Khanate was allotted to Genghis Khan's second son Chagatai. It was centered on the cities of Samarkand, Bukhara and Al-Malik. The Chagatai Khans ruled over modern Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, southern Kyrgyzstan, southwest Kazakhstan and parts of Turkmenistan and Afghanistan. Unlike their cousins in the Yuan dynasty and Ilkhanate, the Chagatai Khanate was landlocked, hemmed in by fellow Mughals. This limited opportunities for expansion. To their south lay the Delhi Sultanate, ruled by the Turks and Afghans of Central Asia and northern India. Repeated clashes occurred as the Mughals saw Delhi as a wealthy target for plunder and expansion. In the late 13th century, Duwa Khan gained prominence as leader of the Chagatai. Along with his son Kutla Khwaja, he launched the most devastating invasions of India. After Duwa's death in 1306, civil wars broke out over succession. The Chagatai Khanate fractured into 2 ulis or principalities. This reduced pressure on the Delhi Sultanate. In the 1330s, Tamashiran Khan briefly reunited the Chagatai Khanate and invaded India, but disunity soon returned. Timur filled the resulting power vacuum in Central Asia. Early Delhi Sultanate rulers. Here is some more detail on key early sultans of Delhi who resisted the early Mughal incursions into India. Iltutmish ruled 1211 to 1236 was the second Sultan of Delhi and helped consolidate the young Sultanate's control over northern India after a period of instability. He shifted the capital from Lahore to Delhi. Ghiyas ud-Din Balban ruled 1266 to 1287, strengthened the army, expanded southwards, and most importantly adopted a harsher policy towards the Mughals, taking back control of the Punjab. Jalal ud-Din Firuz Khalji ruled 1290 to 1296, became Sultan at an old age but defeated a Mughal army at the Battle of Tarain in 1292. However, he was killed by his nephew Ala ud-Din. Ala ud-Din Khalji ruled 1296 to 1316, was the most powerful early Sultan. He centralized the army, implemented economic reforms to finance wars against Mughals and Rajputs, and defeated major Mughal invasions at Kili, Amroha and elsewhere. Ghiyat al-Din Tughlaq ruled 1320 to 1325, defeated a Mughal incursion and drove them out of Dipalpur. He established the Tughlaq dynasty. Muhammad bin Tughlaq ruled 1325 to 1351, repelled a major Mughal attack on the Punjab in 1328 to 1329 during the reign of Tamashiran Khan and reached a negotiated settlement. Ala ud-Din Khalji's early reign. Ala ud-Din Khalji came to power by killing his uncle Jalal ud-Din Firuz Khalji. Here is more detail on how he secured the Sultanate early in his reign. As a young man, Ala-ud-Din impressed the Sultan by slaying a dangerous elephant that had killed its trainer. He quickly rose through the ranks. After murdering his uncle, Ala-ud-Din executed or exiled several sons and supporters of Jalal-ud-Din to prevent revolts. He closely monitored nobles and spies reported any disloyalty. Those perceived as threats were eliminated. Ala-ud-Din centralized control of the army, implementing dug, branding horses, and chehra descriptive roles of soldiers to prevent fraud. He reduced the power of regional governors and removed hereditary claims to officers like army commanders. Loyalty to himself was paramount. Land taxes were increased to 50% of produce. Hoarding was prevented and price controls introduced so that grain remained affordable to feed the army. Temples were plundered for their wealth, which was distributed to courtiers and the army to gain their loyalty. Construction projects like Alai Darwaza Gate and fortifications at Siri demonstrated Ala-ud-Din's power. Through these harsh but effective measures, Ala-ud-Din stabilized the Sultanate, gained control of the nobility and finances, and equipped himself to deal with the Mughal threat, while expanding into southern India. The Battle of Kili. The pivotal Battle of Kili in 1299, where Ala-ud-Din Khalji defeated a massive Mughal invasion, deserves closer examination. Here are some key details. In 1299, Dua Khan dispatched his sons Kutluk Khwaja and Tutug with 60,000 cavalry to conquer Delhi. Ala-ud-Din's army was in Gujarat. Ala-ud-Din's general Zafar Khan confronted the Mughals with a smaller force at Kili, 15 miles from Delhi, while civilians fled to the city. Zafar Khan fell for a feigned retreat, pursued too far, and was surrounded and killed along with many troops. Ala-ud-Din rushed back to Delhi but did not attempt to rescue Zafar Khan, distrusting his popularity. At Kili, Ala-ud-Din divided his army into 3 corps under separate commanders, with contingents of war elephants supporting each. Ala-ud-Din likely had around 70,000 men versus the Mughals' 60,000. His troops were experienced fighting the Mughals. After an intense battle, Ala-ud-Din's forces inflicted a major defeat on Kutluk Khwaja, who was injured and died during his retreat. The Mughals withdrew back to Central Asia, losing momentum. Ala-ud-Din emerging as the victor cemented his authority. This hard-fought victory demonstrated Ala-ud-Din's military brilliance. His reforms had built a highly effective army, familiar with Mughal tactics, that could defend Delhi against enormous invasion forces. Consequences of the Mughal invasions. The repeated Mughal invasions of India in the late 13th and early 14th centuries, though ultimately unsuccessful, had some significant consequences for the Delhi Sultanate. The external threat provided justification for the centralization of authority by sultans like Ala-ud-Din Khalji. This increased the Sultanate's military power but reduced regional autonomy. Fighting the Mughals diverted resources from expansion deeper into India. However, it did allow Delhi to gain control over the wealthy Punjab region along with parts of Rajasthan and Gujarat. Repeated plundering and the threat of invasion devastated parts of northern India like the Punjab. Agriculture declined and Delhi's authority weakened in these areas. The need to supply large armies led to tax and price controls that transformed the Delhi Sultanate's economic system, along with land surveys and agricultural expansion. Military commanders gained prominence over civilian officials. Afghans and Turks recruited as cavalry assumed important positions in the army and administration. Knowledge of siege warfare, cavalry tactics and military technology was transmitted from Central Asia and adopted by the Delhi Sultanate. Construction boomed in Delhi as successive rulers built forts, walls, gates and new cities like Tulukabad to strengthen defenses against Mughal raids. So while the Mughals failed to conquer India, resisting them profoundly influenced the structure, composition and institutions of the Delhi Sultanate. Conclusion. In conclusion, the Mughal invasions from the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia threatened the Delhi Sultanate's control of northern India in the late 13th and early 14th centuries. Despite massive invading armies, skillful Delhi sultans like Ala-ud-Din Khalji were able to defeat the Mughals by adopting their cavalry tactics, using the Indian terrain to their advantage, and implementing military reforms. After much destructive conflict, the Mughals were forced to withdraw from the Indian subcontinent. Dynastic conflicts in Central Asia after 1306 reduced Mughal pressure on India. The determined defense organized by the Delhi Sultanate exhausted Mughal manpower and resources, halting their advances south of the Punjab. However, resisting the formidable Mughal invasions fundamentally transformed the Sultanate's administration, economy, and military structure.